Hello and welcome to Trail Mix by Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast. I'm Dusty.
And I'm Mike.
Trail Mix is the short form episodes here at Gaze at the National Parks. Our long form episodes are one hiking trail and one national park, one park at a time.
And on Trail Mix, we get to dive deeper into things that we weren't able to speak about on our long form episodes. We get to talk about other national parks units, national park updates, and other things happening in the outdoor community and outdoor world.
And today's Trail Mix is the first part of a 3-part installment on Gateway National Recreation Area. Gateway National Recreation Area is found right in the New York Harbor, and it includes units in Queens, Brooklyn, Staten Island, and New Jersey. Today's Trail Mix is all about Sandy Hook Beach, which is located in New Jersey and is part of the Gateway National Recreation Area.
So being that Sandy Hook is so close to the both of us, and it's a place that both of us had visited before but never really explored to its fullest, we recently spent a Saturday taking a very long 7-mile hike basically around the peninsula and exploring all parts of Sandy Hook and what that had to offer, from its beautiful scenery to its history. It was a really deep dive on a really lovely Saturday afternoon.
Sandy Hook Beach is a part of the Gateway National Recreation Area. The Gateway National Recreation Area includes many parks in many places, including New Jersey, Queens, Brooklyn, and Staten Island. The reason they call it Gateway National Recreation Area is because this area of New York Harbor was known as the gateway to America, and it preserves some city parks, some military sites, and some undeveloped land. Sandy Hook is this peninsula that stretches out from New Jersey, and it is one of the first things you would see if you were taking a ship and coming into the New York Harbor.
So as Dusty mentioned, Sandy Hook is one of those first things that you would see as you're coming into the New York Harbor area. When the Englishman Thomas Pownall sailed into the harbor in 1755, he sailed in with good weather and talked about the landscape that he saw. There is a curving channel that takes ships in and around into the bay area of the harbor. But after about 6 years, there were numerous shipwrecks, and it was very clear that the way to navigate into the harbor was pretty difficult, especially if the weather was poor. There were 43 New York merchants that petitioned the Colonial Assembly in New York in 1761 for the creation of a lighthouse. And these citizens were raised a sum that was not to exceed £3,000 by way of a lottery. And that lottery went to basically pay for the lighthouse at Sandy Hook. Sandy Hook Lighthouse is the oldest lighthouse in the country. It was lighted for the first time on June 11th, 1764. And what it did was it provided safe harbor passage into the harbor of New York that otherwise was fairly treacherous. This lighthouse was the first of its kind, and eventually there were other lighthouses that were added in the area, including the Twin Lights Lighthouse of the Navesink, which actually had 2 lighthouse towers eventually built that were distinct from Sandy Hook in the way that they operated, so it gave an even clearer view of ships entering into the harbor area, how they needed to navigate into New York Harbor.
So, Mike, you've been to Sandy Hook before.
Oh, I've been to Sandy Hook before, yes.
I too have been to Sandy Hook before. Let's talk about what brought us to Sandy Hook, because we can't really talk about the Sandy Hook.
You can't skirt the issue here.
You can't skirt the issue.
No.
Because Sandy Hook does have
a nude beach.
New Jersey's only nude beach.
New Jersey's only nude beach.
You've been, I've been.
Yeah, we've all been.
We've all been. Right. It's lovely.
It is lovely. It's a lovely atmosphere.
While it's really secluded.
It's very secluded.
You have to basically walk a whole mile to get out there.
It's called Gunnison Beach. It's frequented very often by New Yorkers because you can take a ferry from the financial district, I believe, right to the Atlantic Highlands, which is very close to Sandy Hook. And you can basically Uber or get a taxi to the beach there.
Oh no, honey, there is a ferry that goes directly to Sandy Hook Beach.
Oh, well, that makes more sense.
Oh, yes.
Obviously, I've never taken that. So
no, me either.
Because I can drive there.
I can drive there.
There you go.
Right. So yeah, there is one that will go right from downtown to Sandy Hook Beach. I mean, it's not cheap. It ain't free.
No, it ain't free.
So But I know lots of people who on their day off when it's warm will go.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, it is frequented by people of all walks of life. I would say it's a pretty heavy gay population frequents the beach, but I think that everybody kind of enjoys the freedom that Gunnison Beach has to offer.
Sure. Now, to be clear, Sandy Hook is a peninsula and it has many, 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 many beaches.
Right.
Gunnison Beach is like
the furthest north.
Furthest away from everything else. So it is really secluded. So many people go to Sandy Hook Beach not to go to Gunnison Beach, but to go to one of the many other beautiful beaches that are there. Yeah. There's something for everyone.
There is something for everyone there.
So, and I did not realize that there really was something for everyone until we went on this hike last weekend. Yeah. So we both ended up with a free Saturday. Right. And it was randomly going to be warm here.
Right. It was like in the 60s because the earth is dying.
You were like, right. And so you called me and you were like, let's go hike somewhere. Yeah. And there's a 7-mile hike on the Sandy Hook Peninsula. Yeah. And so I was like, all right, great. Let's go.
We were going to make a day of it.
Right. Know. And I had the only time I've ever gone to Sandy Hook was to go to one of the beaches there.
Right. One of the beaches.
One of the beaches.
Read between those lines. Right.
So anywho.
So we got up pretty early and left my house. And I'm in like basically southern Monmouth County, northern Ocean County, and Sandy Hook is still a part of Monmouth County, but it's like the way tippy top end because it is that peninsula that does jut off from the Atlantic Highlands, basically. So it took us about 45 minutes to get it there, but we also wanted to take the nice scenic route.
We did, and this is when we were talking about how Google Maps or some other app needs to create like a
scenic map option.
Mm-hmm. Like if you want to do the drive but want the scenic option.
Right.
Versus fastest route or most scenic route.
Right. There are a lot of parking areas because there are, as Dusty had mentioned, multiple beaches that you can go to on the peninsula. We parked in parking area D, which is basically the launching point for this hike. Right. When we got out of the car, we followed the trail basically from the parking lot, which was a regular paved macadam walk for a little bit. And we got to this kind of fork where we weren't sure if we actually had to continue on the macadam or if we could jut off, because there wasn't really there weren't a great amount of trail markers, but there were like 4x4 posts with like a white blaze. We quickly checked our All Trails app. Thank God for that app.
All Trails was like leading the way here.
Right. We realized that, you're going to come back on the macadam. Like you could do that right now, or you could come back that way. And we wanted to actually hike in the sand a little bit and hike through.
Well, because it's a loop. Yeah. And All Trails details it in this way. So you walk from this parking lot that you park in parking lot D. You pass what looks like a paved parking area. With the beach on the other side. And then that's where this turnoff is, the fork. Yeah. And you could either go to the sand or you could go to the left and continue on the macadam. Yeah. So we took the right side of the fork and we started walking through sand.
And you're kind of in like low dune areas here, which is like interesting to like be just basically the beach is just to your right as you're walking. So you have like a really great view the entire time you're on this hike. It's a relatively flat hike because you are on the beach, but it is like a beautiful stroll and you do get to see some pretty interesting things, including some historical things as well. After walking for a little bit, the trail again kind of like we weren't really sure what to do because there wasn't really a post marker. So we had to kind of like go one way for a little bit and then realize, oh, no, that's not it. And so then we came back and we jetted off to the right. Eventually, the trail basically takes you back onto the beach. And we walked probably, I don't know, a good quarter of a mile along the beach,
so
I would say.
What I didn't realize looking at All Trails was it looked like there might be just trails winding through woods. Because you're basically getting sand dunes and woods in this hike most of the time. Yeah. And so Or roadway. And then this took us just right out to the beach. So you're going to have to walk like a quarter mile like on the sand right near the water, which I wasn't complaining about.
Yeah, who was complaining about that?
Beautiful.
Yeah. There were a lot of people fishing.
It is a very beautifully preserved area. And so it is such a spectacular walk. Now, according to the All Trails app, it was like, the turn off the beach was going to be up here in a minute. Yeah. So, we just kept walking up the beach and it was perfect.
Right. which eventually did get us to that turnoff. And the turnoff took us onto a road. And basically, as soon as we got onto that road, there was an old like battery that was no longer in use. I believe the date on it was
thank God it was no longer in use.
I believe the date on it was 1919. It was erected then.
And by battery, you mean?
I mean a military structure, basically.
Right.
Because Sandy Hook was, for a very long time, a military defense for the country. Basically, you can even say from the time of the Revolutionary War, because the lighthouse was such a prized thing, the British actually held control of Sandy Hook for most of the Revolutionary War. Since that, it's really been a prized military target because of its location to New York City. And holding the lighthouse and holding Sandy Hook meant you had access in and out of New York Harbor. It's for a long time been a military installation. It's for the most part decommissioned now, although there is a Coast Guard station at the very tippy top of the hook. So that we would see more of these buildings and structures a little while later, but basically we're on this road now. A dead-end road, dead ends at the beach. It's very clear a lot of people come here because there were a lot of fishermen basically right on the beach. It's a good fishing spot. I'm sure a lot of surfers would come and park here and get onto the beach to surf.
Now, as we were walking along this road, like we did see like a footpath through the trees to the right. And we were like, oh, we think this might be the way we need to go. According to all trails, we needed to go a little further, but we went further. We didn't see anything. So we came back and we got on that footpath.
Right.
Which ended up being the right thing to do.
Yeah, it was the right thing to do.
And that was more sand dunes through the woods.
Right. At this point now, we are actually, though, in the woods, like sandy woods. It's not a long stretch before eventually we, after walking and seeing some marshy areas to our left, can't really see the beach anymore on our right. After walking for a little while, we end up hitting a road. Sandy Hook, it's worth noting that this is a big recreation area for a lot of things. This is a big biking area. There are a ton of people biking. The macadam that we started on is a major bike path. The nice thing is that they have these bike repair stations set up along the way, which I think you were like so enamored to see.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. It has like everything that you need. Like everything's attached to it. You can like holster your bike upright so you can fix it without it being like leaning down. So these are everywhere because it is a big biking area. And a lot of people will bike from the Highlands basically to the Hook and then back. That's a big path.
Another thing that happened when we were on this road, this woman drove by in her car and she rolled down the window and she was like, have you seen the group of birders? There's a whole bunch of them. You can't miss them. I'm just looking for them. And I was like, no, we haven't. But suddenly now we're looking for the birders too.
You were very excited about the prospect of birding. I was very excited.
I was like, wait, there are birders here in Sandy Hook?
Yeah, it's also a good area for birding.
Did I know.
Little did you know, but now you do.
You know that like over 300 different species of birds from the Arctic to South America have been spotted in Sandy Hook.
That makes sense. I mean,
yeah, it does make sense.
They're there for Gunnison Beach.
But, clearly, right? I was like, well, I guess I know where I can start in my, like, birding
retirement
life.
or right now.
Yeah. My retirement 30s life.
That's right.
My birding
life.
Live
that life. So we all should.
I was like, okay, great.
Yeah.
I thought maybe she just... There was like a group of birders who decided to just come here. I did not know at the time that it was such a spot for
Birders Paradise.
Birders Paradise. Mm-hmm.
So it's the updated version of the Coolio song.
I've
been spending most of my life living in a birders paradise. That's right. You can sit backwards in a chair just like Michelle Pfeiffer did in the music video.
I shan't. No, thank you. No.
Just basically for a little while, you're along this road, and that takes you up further and closer to Gunnison Beach and the battlement that's there.
And there's a battlement right there.
Right.
With two big cannons.
Yeah. Some big old guns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's basically where you would at that point get onto the beach. And like Dusty says, from that point, you're basically walking a full mile out, like into a very secluded area. There's a giant sign if you ever decide to go to the beach. Not that this episode is about the nude beach at Gunnison, but it's worth mentioning. There's a giant sign that you may encounter nude bathers beyond this point.
So I was curious about like how nude beaches become things, right? And basically, because the only other nude beach that I know of is in Provincetown, and it is also on nationally protected land.
Oh.
And so I looked into this and I was like, oh, is there like some sort of, if like a beach becomes nationally protected, does then like
the nudes follow?
I don't know. Why is there a correlation? Was my question. And so essentially what I found in what I researched was like, no, nude beaches they become nude beaches because people frequent them so often, right? And so when the land is taken over by like federal government, they basically are just like, well, like we'll continue this like culture and tradition as, you know, as long as we just have, you know, rules in place.
Yeah.
And so that essentially happened 2 separate times in both those cases.
The area that's thank you for your
Anytime.
knowledge drop there on nude beaches. It's very important. The more you know star just flew by. Where we ended up at was basically the Battery Gunnison. Sandy Hook was known for having these disappearing guns at all its battlements, and disappearing guns are guns that they could be loaded and fired very quickly, but they would basically disappear and you would not be able to see them from the sea. So they kind of like would emerge when they needed to and then refold back behind walls and battlements. We were at this 6-inch disappearing gun battery, which you can walk right up to the guns. Like you can climb right up there.
They're right there.
After that, we continue on along the road a little bit more. At this point, we're entering into Fort Hancock area. And
I had never seen this area.
Right.
And it was literally around the corner from Gunnison Beach. It shows you what I have gone to that beach to go to.
Fort Hancock is a military installation, like I said, that's really no longer in full operation. There are parts of it that are still active for different purposes. There is a school that is at the fort. It's called MAST. It's the Marine and Science and Technology Academy, and it is a vocational magnet school for students in Monmouth County. It's a really hard school to get into if you're interested in science and marine biology and things like that. The school is located there on the Hook, which is really interesting. A lot of the homes that we had seen that were a part of what was Fort Hancock are now under renovation. And so there are some people that are living in these homes, which are rented, but there are most of those that are still sort of in a state of disrepair. So it seems like there's a lot of life that's happening there and a lot of things that are moving. The lighthouse is also basically right there after you pass Gunnison Beach. The Sandy Hook Lighthouse is right at the start there of the fort area. Originally, the lighthouse was only 500 feet from the shore, and now it's something like 1.5 miles because sand deposits basically kept bumping the length of the hook further and further out. So there's more property that's being added to Sandy Hook over time, which is really interesting too.
It is. And as you turn the corner after the Gunnison Beach entrance, you're still on the road, and this road goes right into this area of Fort Hancock that you're talking about.
Yep.
There are a number of interconnected roads right through this area, but essentially you have this like one giant lawn that you're walking like the perimeter of, and there are offshoots of that lawn. And there are a bunch of buildings that look like they're old military buildings that have now been renovated into homes or offices or other government buildings.
Right.
The Coast Guard is there, and also the National Park Service.
Right. The town itself, that is this military town of Fort Hancock, is really interesting. There are several barracks buildings. There are 18 officers' homes that faced not the parade grounds, which is typical for a fort, but they actually faced the bay of Sandy Hook because it provided for cool breezes and beautiful sunsets is what I read. But these are some of those homes that are now under that renovation process. It's really neat to be able to walk the grounds up there. It's hauntingly beautiful to see this piece of military history, and you can really get pretty close to the buildings, although it's recommended that you have a hard hat on because there are things that could fall off of them. And you're able to really just walk around and get a great glimpse of what this military town used to be like. At this point, because it was so warm, I think a little before we had gotten to the fort and to Gunnison, we had layered up because we weren't really sure what it was going to be like. And I was down to a t-shirt, but as soon as we turned onto like Officers Row, the wind off the bay was
freezing
intense.
Yes.
So we both like just sweatshirted back up and basically were like fighting the wind.
Oh yeah.
The whole way back down until we came back to the end of the fort and looped onto that macadam path. And the macadam path is basically like a really lovely little stroll all the way back. You do get a little bit more of the military history as you're walking down. There was like a major radar installation on Sandy Hook. There was also, this was also the home for the Nike missile defense system, because of its strategic location right on basically the harbor for New York. And that was... Most forts after World War II, because the style of war had changed, were decommissioned, but because of Fort Hancock's basic strategic positioning, they were allowed to stay open, and they stayed basically until 1974 when the fort was decommissioned. So you do see some of those major military sites like along this walk on the way back. But the macadam at that point, like once you're at the fort, it's like another 3.5 miles or 3.25 miles back to the car, which... Again, at this point, the day had kind of changed and it had kind of grayed over, so it got a lot colder.
It did.
It started as a very warm day, yeah.
Right. But such a beautiful day.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful day to discover such a tiny secret little trail hidden right in the middle of the water in New Jersey. Let's put this trail on the Karen Stone scale and then play a game, Mike.
Great.
Okay. So let's be real. This trail is flat the whole time.
Yeah.
Praise.
Yeah.
It was flat the whole time.
And it's worth doing it.
Oh, so worth doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do stop by the visitor center by the lighthouse, which you can get a tour of that lighthouse.
Yeah.
We just give it at different times.
Yeah. It was not.
But that was when we found out that it was such a center for birding.
Yeah.
And they had such a great interactive exhibit about lighthouses, what they do, and the lighthouses in the Gateway National Recreation Area.
Yeah, and along the coast, yeah.
So.
But as far as Karen Stone goes, I mean... She's like a 1.
She's like a 1.
I mean, other than confusion factor at the beginning and like lack of marking, like
2 out of 20.
Yeah, 2 out of 20.
2 out of 20 at best. All right, it's time to play some Sandy Hook word morph.
Great.
Are you ready?
I look forward to this. Yes.
Okay. So in this game, it is the phrase Sandy Hook, but something has been morphed about it.
Great.
And it is either the first or second word.
Great.
All right. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
This New Jersey beach, if it was named after the star of the 1997 Cinderella found on ABC.
What is Brandy Hook?
That is correct. Great. This New Jersey beach, if it was named after a phrase that Danny might say to his love interest in Greece if he were trying to get her to see something in the distance.
Sandy, look!
That's right. This New Jersey beach, if photographs of it were printed and published and bound.
Sandy Book.
That is correct. All right. This New Jersey beach, if it were named for a lemony beer.
Shandy Hook.
That is correct.
Yeah, it really had me thinking on that for a minute.
This tiny little area of your house, if it was themed like this New Jersey beach.
What is the Sandy Nook?
That is right. And finally, this New Jersey beach, if the welcome sign said, "Baby, come to me, show me who you are, speak to me like sugar to my heart."
What is Candy Hook?
That is correct. I would have also accepted
Mandy Hook.
This has been Trail Mix by Gaze at the National Parks, the podcast. And we're here to remind you to hike early and hike often, and that adventure is always out there.
Gaze at the National Parks was created and is hosted by Dustin Ballard and Michael Ryan.
For images from today's Trail Mix, follow our Instagram at Gaze at the National Parks. To contact us, email us at gazeatthenationalparks@gmail.com. And to find out more information about Gateway National Recreation Area and Sandy Hook, as well as the other national parks spoken about on the show, visit our website, gazeatthenationalparks.com. That's Gaze, G-A-Z-E.
This episode was edited by Dustin Ballard.
All original music was written by Dave Seaman and performed by Dave Seaman, Mariella Klinger, and Sean Sklios. Our music producer is Skyler Fortgang.
All original artwork featured on Instagram and on our website is by Michael Ryan. We would also like to acknowledge that while hiking on Sandy Hook, that we were on the traditional lands of the Lenape Nation.